Hello everyone and welcome back to Shadow Man Stories. I can picture some of you already in bed, maybe some of you just getting home from work. Wherever you are, whatever time it is, I'm glad you're here. If this helps you relax or sleep, please like and subscribe. It means a lot. Now, let's get you comfortable, and I'll tell you tonight's story. My name is Daniel McReynolds, but everyone just calls me Danny. I've been a ranger with the Daniel Boone National Forest for 19 years now, and in all that time, I thought I'd seen everything these Kentucky woods had to offer. I was wrong. November 1987 hit us hard that year. The weather turned mean early, bringing ice storms that made the sandstone cliffs in Red River Gorge shine like glass. I was 44 years old, and my body reminded me of it every morning when I rolled out of bed. My daughter Sarah was 16 and living with my sister down in Lexington. Her mother, my wife Emily, had passed 3 years back from cancer. The job kept me going, kept my mind busy. I specialized in law enforcement, which meant I dealt with the idiots who thought national forest land was a good place for their illegal activities. Pot farms mostly, sometimes meth labs, and once in a while we'd still find an old-timer running moonshine like it was 1920. That Tuesday morning started normal enough. My partner, Rick Torres, met me at the ranger station at 6 a.m. Rick was younger than me by 15 years, fit as hell, and loved to rappel down the gorge faces. Made me tired just watching him. Got a call from a hiker yesterday, Rick said, pouring coffee that looked like motor oil. Said he smelled something chemical-like coming from down in Breakneck Hollow. I knew the place. Everyone did, though most folks stayed away. Breakneck Hollow was a deep cut in the gorge, accessible only by rope. The rock walls went straight down about 80 feet, and at the bottom was a natural shelter formed by an overhang of sandstone. Old-timers said moonshiners used it during Prohibition. Also said 3 men died there in a family feud back in 1932. Could be nothing, I said. Could be a new still. DEA wants to come along, Rick added. Sending 3 agents. I didn't like working with DEA. I treated forest rangers like we were park security guards instead of law enforcement. But if someone was cooking meth down there, we needed them. The DEA agents showed up at 9. Special Agent Carter was the lead, tall black guy with shoulders like a linebacker. The other 2 were Agent Phillips, a red-haired woman who looked too young to carry a badge, and Agent Moss, a quiet man with gray at his temples who kept checking his equipment. We drove out to the trailhead in 2 vehicles. The 5th person in our group was Billy Combs, a local we'd hired as a guide. Billy was about 60, missing most of his teeth, and knew every inch of these woods. His grandfather had run shine in these hollows. "Y'all sure you want to go down there?" Billy asked as we geared up with ropes and harnesses. "Breakneck Hollow ain't a good place. Never has been." "Why's that?" Agent Phillips asked. Billy spit tobacco juice. "My papaw told me stories. Said a man named Jessup ran a still down there during Prohibition, made the best whiskey in 3 counties. But another family, the Hennessy's, wanted that spot. They came one night and killed Jessup while he was tending his fire, shot him and left him to burn with his own product." "Folk tales," Carter said dismissively. "Maybe so," Billy replied. "But folks who go down there say they smell smoke when there ain't no fire. Say they hear someone moving around in the dark." I'd heard the stories too. Never believed them. I'd grown up Methodist, gone to church every Sunday until Emily died, and I figured if there was an afterlife, ghosts didn't spend their time haunting Kentucky hollows. We hiked 2 miles through forest that was already showing winter's teeth. Ice hung from bare branches. Our breath made clouds in the cold air. When we reached the cliff edge, I looked down into Breakneck Hollow. The gorge cut deep and narrow. Trees grew sparse down, there, and I could see the dark mouth of the rock shelter about 70 feet below. Water dripped from the cliff face, already starting to freeze. Rick went first, rappelling down smooth and fast. Then Carter, then Phillips, then Moss. I went next, and Billy came last, moving slower with his old knees. My boots hit the hollow floor, and I unclipped from the rope. The temperature felt 10 degrees colder down here. The rock walls blocked most of the daylight, leaving everything in gray shadow. And I smelled it. Definitely smelled it. Alcohol. Strong and sharp, like someone had just opened a bottle of pure grain alcohol. There. Moss pointed toward the rock shelter. We moved together, hands on our weapons. The shelter was maybe 15 feet deep, the ceiling low enough that Carter had to duck. And there, in the back, sat the still. It was old. Really old. A copper pot still with coils that had turned green with age. Looked like it hadn't been used in 50 years. But around it, scattered on the ground, were fresh bottles, mason jars filled with clear liquid. Someone's been here recently, Carter said. Rick knelt by the still. These jars can't be more than a few days old. Liquid still. He stopped. We all heard it. Footsteps, from deeper in the shelter, where the shadows got too thick to see. "Federal agents," Carter shouted. "Come out with your hands visible." The footsteps stopped. Then we heard breathing. Heavy, wet breathing, like someone with fluid in their lungs. And the smell got stronger. So strong my eyes watered. "I'm going in," Carter said. That's when Billy grabbed my arm. His hand was shaking. "We need to leave," he whispered. "Right now. That ain't no person back there." Agent Carter moved into the deeper shadows with his flashlight cutting through the dark. Agent Moss followed him, and I went third, my hand on my sidearm. The breathing sound had stopped, but the smell was so strong now I could taste it on my tongue. Raw alcohol, burning in my sinuses. "There's something here," Carter said, his light hitting the back wall. Symbols. Scratched into the sandstone. Not random marks, these were deliberate. Circles with crosses inside them. Words I couldn't quite read. And in the center, someone had carved a name. Jessup. "What the hell?" Moss breathed. That's when we heard the scream. It came from outside the shelter, high and terrified. A woman's scream. We ran back toward the entrance. Agent Phillips was on the ground, scrambling backward, her flashlight dropped and still rolling. Rick and Billy stood frozen, staring at something near the old still. One of the mason jars was on fire. Not just on fire, burning with a flame that was wrong. It was blue-white, bright as a welding torch, and it wasn't consuming the jar or spreading to anything around it. Just burning in place, impossibly hot. The rocks underneath started to glow red. "Get back!" I shouted. The flame shot up suddenly, a column of fire 6 feet high, and I swear to God, it moved. It bent toward us like it was reaching. Then it went out. Just disappeared. The jar sat there, still full of clear liquid, not even warm. "Did you see that?" Phillips was breathing hard. "Did everyone see that?" "Swamp gas," Carter said, but his voice shook. "Methane from underground." "That wasn't no gas," Billy interrupted. "That was him. That was Jessup. I told you we shouldn't have come here." "There's a rational explanation," Carter insisted. But I noticed he was backing toward the rope. We all were. "We're leaving," I said. "Right now. We'll come back with more people and better equipment." Nobody argued. Rick reached the rope first and started climbing. Then Phillips clipped in and went up. I was helping Billy get his harness sorted when Moss screamed. We turned. He was standing rigid, his whole body locked up tight. His eyes were huge and white, and his mouth opened too wide like his jaw was unhinged. "Moss!" Carter ran toward him. Moss's head turned. Not his body, just his head, rotating further than any human neck should allow. And when he spoke, it wasn't his voice. It was deeper, rougher, with an accent straight out of the 1930s. "You came to my hollow, my still, my place." Then Moss grabbed Carter's throat with both hands. Carter was a big man, strong, but Moss lifted him off the ground like he weighed nothing. Carter's gun fell from his hand. His feet kicked air. I drew my weapon. "Let him go!" Moss, or whatever was controlling Moss, turned those wide white eyes toward me. "This hollow is mine. Has been since they killed me. Since they burned me alive with my own shine, you don't belong here." "I said let him go." I aimed at Moss's leg, not wanting to kill him. The thing wearing moss smiled. Then it threw Carter. Actually threw him, like a doll, 15 feet across the hollow. Carter hit the cliff wall with a crack that made my stomach turn. He slid down and didn't move. Billy ran. Just turned and sprinted for the rope, his old legs pumping. I fired. Hit Moss in the thigh. He went down, but that smile never left his face. Bullets can't kill what's already dead, Ranger. Phillips was screaming from up above, but I couldn't look away from Moss. He was standing back up, no blood coming from the bullet wound. His leg shouldn't have supported him, but he walked forward like nothing was wrong. "Danny!" Rick's voice from above. "Climb! Now!" I backed toward the rope, keeping my gun trained on Moss. My hands found the line. I clipped my harness with shaking fingers. Moss took another step, then another. His head was still turned at that wrong angle. "You can run," he said in that old, dead voice. "But you're still in my hollow, still breathing my air, still got my shine in your lungs." I started climbing, hand over hand, my boots scrabbling against wet rock. Below me, Moss just stood there, watching with those terrible white eyes. When I was halfway up, I heard him laugh. It echoed off the walls, bouncing around until it sounded like a dozen voices laughing together. I climbed faster. Rick grabbed my harness and led me over the edge. Billy was already there, curled up and shaking. Phillips was on her radio, calling for backup, her words tumbling over each other. "Carter's down there," I gasped. "Moss. Something's wrong with Moss." "I saw," Rick said. His face was white. "Danny, what the hell was that?" I looked back down into the hollow. Moss was still visible, standing motionless in the gray light. And around him, more of those mason jars were starting to glow with that blue-white flame. "We need to get out of these woods," Billy said. "Right now. My papaw was right. Jessup's still down there, and he don't want nobody near his still." "That's impossible," Phillips said, but she was crying. "People don't. Possession isn't real." "You saw it," I said. "We all saw it." The flames in the hollow were growing brighter. And on the wind, I swear I could hear that breathing again. Heavy and wet and angry. We ran. We made it back to the vehicles by early afternoon. Phillips was still on the radio, talking to her supervisor, her voice getting higher and more desperate with each word. Nobody was believing her story. Hell, I barely believed it myself, and I'd seen it. "They're sending a helicopter," she finally said, "for Carter, and they want us to wait here." "Wait?" Billy laughed, wild and bitter. "You want to wait while that thing is down there?" "Carter might still be alive," I said, though I didn't believe it. The sound he'd made hitting that wall. Rick was pacing, his hands in his hair. "This isn't happening. This can't be happening. There has to be an explanation. Gas leak, or maybe something in the water." "You saw his eyes," I interrupted. "You saw how Moss moved. That wasn't drugs or gas." "Then what was it?" Rick shouted. "Ghosts? You expect me to believe in ghosts?" I didn't have an answer for that. 19 years in these woods, and I'd never seen anything I couldn't explain. But I'd also never seen a man turn his head backwards or throw someone 15 feet like they were nothing. The helicopter arrived 2 hours later. By then, the sun was starting to drop, and the temperature with it. Ice was forming on everything. 2 rangers I knew, Tom Briggs and Ellen McCarthy, came with the helicopter. They had medical equipment and body recovery gear. "You really think someone threw Carter that hard?" Tom asked. He was skeptical. I could see it in his face. "I know what I saw," I said. Ellen was checking the rope equipment. "Then we go down, get Carter, and get out. Fast." "I'm not going back down there," Billy said flatly. "Not for any amount of money." "Fine," I said. "You stay here. Rick, you stay with him and Phillips." Rick looked relieved. Phillips looked ashamed but didn't argue. So it was me, Tom, and Ellen. We geared up as the helicopter pilots stayed with the radio, ready to call for more help if we needed it. The hike back felt longer this time. The woods were quieter. No birds, no squirrels, nothing. Just our boots crunching on frozen leaves and our breathing in the cold air. When we reached the edge of Breakneck Hollow, I looked down. Moss was gone. So was Carter, though I could see a dark stain on the cliff wall where he'd hit. "Where did they go?" Ellen whispered. Good question. There was no way out of that hollow except the rope. Unless... "The rock shelter," I said. "It might go deeper than we thought. Caves, maybe." Tom was already setting up the rappelling gear. "Let's get this done." We went down together this time, all three of us on separate ropes. My boots hit the bottom, and immediately I knew something was different. The mason jars were arranged in a circle around the old still, all of them. Maybe 20 jars, each one filled with that clear liquid, positioned with deliberate care. And in the center of the circle, someone had poured liquid to form words in the dirt. "Mine." "Oh, that's not good," Tom said. Ellen had her flashlight out, checking the rock shelter. "Carter! Agent Moss, can you hear me?" Her voice echoed into the shelter, but nothing came back except our own sounds. I approached the circle of jars carefully, my gun drawn. The liquid inside them seemed to glow faintly, like it had its own light. "Don't touch them," I said. "Wasn't planning on it," Tom replied. That's when we heard the dripping. From deeper in the shelter, a steady drip, drip, drip of liquid hitting stone. Ellen moved toward the sound, and I followed, leaving Tom to watch the entrance. The shelter did go deeper, not a cave exactly, but a crack in the rock that a person could squeeze through if they didn't mind tight spaces. Ellen went first. She was smaller than me, and she slipped through easily. I had to turn sideways, my chest scraping rock. On the other side was a space I hadn't known existed. A natural room in the stone, maybe 10 feet across, with a ceiling high enough to stand. And it stank. That same alcohol smell, but worse now, mixed with something rotten. Our flashlights found them at the same time, Carter and Moss, against the far wall. They were alive, sort of. Their chests moved, breathing shallow, but their eyes were open and white, rolled back in their heads. And they were drinking. Each of them held a mason jar, tipping it to their lips, swallowing mechanically. Clear liquid ran down their chins, soaking their clothes. Empty jars lay scattered around them. "Carter!" Ellen rushed forward. "Wait," I started to say, but she was already grabbing his shoulders, trying to shake him. Carter's eyes rolled forward, focused on her, and he smiled. Then he grabbed her throat with one hand and smashed the jar against her head with the other. Ellen went down hard. I caught her as she fell, her head bleeding, and Carter stood up. Moss stood up too. They moved together in perfect sync, like puppets on the same strings. "The hollow provides," Carter said in that wrong voice, that Jessup voice. "The whole. Low gives and gives, good shine, best shine, and now you'll drink too." They started toward us. I dragged Ellen back toward the crack in the rock, but she was dead weight, unconscious. Tom appeared, squeezing through, and together we hauled her into the outer shelter. "What happened?" Tom demanded. "They're possessed," I said, "or controlled. Same thing that happened to Moss before." "That's insane! Tell them that!" I pointed at the crack, just as Carter's hand reached through, groping blindly. We ran for the rope. Tom went up first, hauling Ellen with him in a rescue harness. I was clipping in when the jars started burning. All of them. Every jar in that circle ignited at once with those blue-white flames, and the heat hit me like a wall. The air itself seemed to catch fire, alcohol vapor burning, and I could smell my hair starting to singe. I climbed, hand over hand as fast as my aching arms would allow. Below me, the flames spread across the hollow floor in patterns, deliberate patterns, like something was painting with fire. Tom grabbed my harness and pulled me over the edge just as something grabbed my boot. I looked down. Carter was hanging from my foot, his white eyes staring up at me, his mouth open in a grin that showed too many teeth. He'd climbed the cliff face. Actually climbed it, no rope, just his bare hands finding holds in rock. "You drank the air," he whispered in Jessup's voice. "You breathed my still. You're mine now too." I kicked, hit him in the face. He didn't let go. Tom drew his knife and slashed at Carter's hand. Blood sprayed, but Carter just laughed and held on tighter. Then Ellen, barely conscious, pulled her gun and fired. The bullet hit Carter in the shoulder. He fell, spinning through the air, and landed in the burning hollow with a thud I felt in my bones. But a second later he stood up, started climbing again. "Cut the ropes," I shouted. "All of them." Tom hesitated only a second. Then his knife went through the lines. They fell away, disappearing into the flames below. Carter stopped climbing. He hung there on the clay, a face impossibly strong, his damaged hand still gripping rock. Then, slowly, he smiled. "You'll be back," Jessup's voice echoed up from the hollow. "They always come back to Breakneck. This is my place, my still, my hollow, and everyone who drinks my air becomes mine." Then he let go and fell into the flames. We got Ellen to the helicopter and flew her straight to the hospital in Lexington. She had a concussion and would need stitches, but she'd live. The pilot had called for police backup, and by the time we got back to the ranger station, there were state troopers and more DEA agents waiting. I told them everything, every detail. I expected them not to believe me. They didn't. "Sounds like you all got into something chemical down there," the state police captain said. "Probably fumes from an active meth cook. Causes hallucinations, violent behavior." "It wasn't meth," I said for the 10th time, and the still was 50 years old. "Then maybe there's gas pockets in the cave. Carbon monoxide can make people see all sorts of things." I looked at Rick. He was nodding along, wanting to believe the rational explanation. Phillips was already talking to a DEA psychologist about trauma responses. Billy had gone home. Only Tom believed me. He'd seen Carter climb that cliff. He'd seen the fires burn in patterns. "What do we do?" he asked quietly while everyone else was arguing. I thought about Sarah, about how I'd promised Emily I'd keep our daughter safe, give her a stable life. Going back to that hollow was suicide. Whatever Jessup was, whatever had happened to him when he died, it had made him into something that couldn't be killed or reasoned with. But Carter and Moss were still down there. Maybe dead now, maybe not. And if what Jessup said was true, that anyone who breathed the air in his hollow became his, then we were all infected. We'd all breathed that alcohol vapor. "Now we end this," I said. "Tonight." I went home first, called Sarah and told her I loved her, that if anything happened to me, her aunt would take care of her. She thought I was being dramatic. I hoped she was right. Then I went to the library, dug through old records and newspaper archives from the 1930s. Found the story Billy's grandfather had told, Jessup's murder. But there was more to it. Jessup hadn't just been a moonshiner. He'd been a father, had a wife, and 2 daughters. When the Hennessy's came to take his still site, they killed his whole family, made him watch. Then they shot him and left him to die in the flames of his own still, surrounded by the bodies of everyone he loved. The article said Jessup had cursed them as he burned, screamed that he'd never leave, that the hollow was his forever, that anyone who came for his still would join him in hell. All 3 Hennessy's died within a week, 1 in a fire, 1 drowned in a creek, drowned in 2 inches of water, dead drunk. The 3rd went crazy, they said, raving about smoke and flames and a voice that wouldn't stop talking until he put his shotgun in his mouth. And there was one more detail. In the evidence photos from Jessup's murder scene, I could see symbols scratched in the rock. The same symbols we'd seen today. They were protection marks. Cherokee, according to the anthropologist who'd studied them. Meant to bind spirits to a place, keep them from wandering. Jessup hadn't just cursed the hollow. He'd bound himself to it with old magic, with symbols and belief and rage. And now he was trapped there, repeating his death forever, making everyone who entered his territory drink the shine that had killed him. Tom came with me when I went back that night. Nobody else would. I didn't tell the authorities what we were doing. They'd have stopped us, locked us up for psychiatric evaluation. We brought supplies, gas cans, flares, and a cross from the Methodist church my mother had attended. The pastor had been skeptical, but when I explained what I needed and why, he'd blessed the cross and, too, told me to be careful. We also brought Billy. Found him at home, drunk, trying to forget what he'd seen. "I know how to stop it," I told him. But I need to know if your grandfather said anything else about Jessup. Anything about how to put him to rest. Billy looked at me with red eyes. Papa said Jessup loved his family more than anything. Said he wasn't evil, just broken. Said maybe if someone gave him peace, gave him what he lost, he might let go. What did he lose? Everyone. Everything. They burned him alive and took his whole world. I thought about that on the drive to Breakneck. About losing Emily. About how that grief had felt like burning alive from the inside. About how, if I'd died in that moment, I might have held on to my rage forever too. We reached the cliff edge at midnight. Below, the hollow was dark, but I could see flickers of blue flame moving in patterns. We dropped the gas cans down first, then rappelled after them. All three of us, probably the stupidest thing I'd ever done. When my feet hit the bottom, the cold wrapped around me like hands. The still stood exactly where it had been, but now more jars surrounded it. Dozens of them. And standing among them were Carter and Moss. They looked dead. Should have been dead. But they moved when we appeared, turning in unison, their white eyes glowing in the darkness. "You came back," they said together in Jessup's voice. "Good. The hollow needs more. The hollow is always thirsty." I held up the cross. "Jessup, listen to me. Your family is gone. The Hennessy's are gone. Your revenge is finished. You can let go now." The laughter that came from Carter and Moss's mouths was terrible, full of pain and rage that had been festering for 50 years. "Let go? They murdered my daughters, my Sarah and Mary, 8 and 6 years old, made me watch while they—" The voice broke, and for a moment I heard genuine agony. "I can't leave them. Won't leave. This hollow is all I have." "You're trapped," I said. "The Cherokee symbols. You bound yourself here. You're in hell, Jessup. Let us help you." "Help?" The possessed men stepped closer. "I'll make you understand. I'll make you feel what I felt. You'll drink and drink until you burn from the inside, just like I did." They rushed us. Tom threw a flare. It hit the ground and ignited, the red light harsh against the blue flames. In that light, I saw something else. Shadows moving behind Carter and Moss. Small shadows. Child-sized. "Your daughters are here," I said suddenly, understanding. "Sarah and Mary. They're trapped too, aren't they? Bound by the same symbols." The possessed men stopped. "They're with me," Jessup's voice whispered. "They'll always be with me." "They're children," I said. "They should be at peace. You're keeping them in your pain, your rage. Is that what you want for them?" Silence. The blue flames flickered lower. I set down my gun and walked toward the still, toward the symbols carved in the rock. Tom tried to stop me, but I shook him off. "My wife died," I told the darkness. "Cancer. I watched her suffer for months. And when she was gone, I wanted to die too. Wanted to hold on to the pain because it was all I had left of her. But my daughter needed me. Needed me to let go of the rage and the grief, to live for her instead of dying with Emily." I touched the copper still. It was ice cold. "Your daughters need you to let go, Jessup. They need peace, and you do too." "I can't." The voice was smaller now, human, broken. "I don't know how." "The symbols," Billy said, stepping forward. "They bind you here. But fire breaks all bonds. You know that. You've always known that." I understood then. Grabbed a gas can and started pouring it over the still. Over the symbols. Over everything. "No!" Jessup screamed through Carter and Moss. They rushed forward. I struck a flare and dropped it. The hollow exploded with light. Real fire this time, orange and hot, consuming the alcohol we'd spread. The old still began to glow red, then white, then started to melt, the copper running like water. The symbols blackened and cracked, and from the flames I heard singing. A lullaby, soft and sad, in a voice that might have been male or female or both. The kind of song a father sings to his children to make them feel safe. Carter and Moss collapsed, just dropped like puppets with cut strings. The singing grew louder, and in the flames I saw shapes. A man and two small girls holding hands, their forms made of smoke and fire and memory. They looked at me, and the man, Jessup, smiled. A real smile, not the terrible grin from before. "Thank you," he whispered. Then they were gone. The flames turned normal, the cold lifted, and Breakneck Hollow was just a hollow again, nothing more. Carter and Moss survived. Neither remembered anything after entering the rock shelter that first time. The official report called it mass hysteria from chemical exposure, dangerous fumes from an old moonshine still. They found traces of methanol that backed up the story, never mind that it didn't explain half of what we'd experienced. Ellen recovered, went back to ranger work after a month. She never talked about what she'd seen, but sometimes I caught her looking at the forest like she was seeing something else, something underneath. Tom and I went back to Breakneck Hollow one last time, in daylight, with a crew. We destroyed what was left of the still, filled in the rock shelter with dynamite and debris, made it so nobody could easily access that space again. The symbols were gone, burned away, and the hollow felt empty now. Clean. Billy Combs died that winter, peaceful in his sleep. At his funeral, his grandson told me Billy had been smiling when they found him, and he'd left a note that just said, "They found their way home." I think about that sometimes, about what Billy's grandfather had said, that Jessup wasn't evil, just broken. About how grief and rage can trap us just as surely as any Cherokee binding symbol. About how letting go is the hardest and most necessary thing we ever do. I still work at Daniel Boone National Forest, still hike these woods. And yeah, sometimes I'll catch a smell of alcohol on the wind, or hear something that might be footsteps when nobody's there. But it doesn't feel malevolent anymore, just present. Like the forest remembering what happened, carrying the memory forward. Sarah graduated high school and went to college to study anthropology. Says she wants to understand the stories people tell about the places they live. I think Emily would be proud of her. I know I am. 3 years after Breakneck, I was checking a campsite near Red River when I found something odd. A mason jar, old style, sitting on a rock in perfect sunlight. It was full of clear liquid. I should have left it alone, should have walked away. But I opened it, smelled it. Water, just water. Cool and clean. And underneath the jar, carved fresh in the stone, was a single word: thanks. I poured the water out over the rock, watched it trickle away into the earth. Maybe I imagined the sense of peace that followed. Maybe I didn't. Either way, I said, "You're welcome" to the empty air, and I meant it. Sometimes the dead just need someone to listen, to understand, to help them find their way home. And sometimes, if you're lucky, they say thank you. I'm 47 now. My body aches more than it used to, especially on cold November mornings when ice forms on the cliff faces. I still work these woods, still protect them. And I tell people who ask about Breakneck Hollow that it's dangerous, unstable rock, best avoided. Most listen, some don't. For those who don't, I tell them one more thing. If you go down there and you smell smoke, if you hear someone singing a lullaby, if you feel colder than the weather allows, leave. Don't ask questions, don't investigate. Just leave, because some places remember. And what they remember can still reach out and touch you, even years later. The hollow is quiet now. Peaceful, I think. But on certain nights when the moon is dark and the wind comes from the north, I swear I can still hear it. A father's voice, singing his daughters to sleep, promising them they're safe now, that the bad men are gone, that they can finally rest. And maybe, somewhere in the darkness between the trees, they can... My name is Jonathan Blackwell, but everyone calls me John. I've been a ranger at Chattahoochee National Forest for 13 years now, and I thought I'd seen everything these mountains could throw at me. Bear attacks, lost hikers, the occasional meth lab hidden in the hollows, but nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for what happened on Blood Mountain that October. I should tell you right now, I don't believe in ghosts. Never have. My ex-wife used to say I was too practical, too grounded. John, you need to let yourself feel things, she'd say. Maybe she was right. Maybe that's why I ended up alone in a cabin in the woods while she got the house and I got my boys every other weekend. But that's life, right? You play the cards you're dealt. Blood Mountain sits at the southern end of the Appalachian Trail, about 4,458 feet up. People come from all over to hike it, take pictures at the stone shelter on top, then head back down. Most don't know why it's called Blood Mountain. The Cherokee and Creek Indians fought a massive battle there back in the 1700s. So many died that the ground supposedly ran red. The streams carried blood for days. Local folks tell other stories too. They say Confederate deserters hid in the caves during the Civil War, killing Union soldiers and each other. They say people have gone missing up there for over 200 years. But every mountain has its legends, right? I figured it was just talk. October of 1994 started out normal enough. The leaves were turning, reds and golds covering the mountains like a quilt. Beautiful time of year, usually. But that October was different. It rained. God, how it rained. Not your typical autumn showers, but heavy, pounding storms that came out of nowhere. Flash flood warnings went out every other day. I remember the morning everything started. Tuesday, October 11th. I was at the ranger station, filling out paper. Work, my least favorite part of the job, when the call came in. 2 thru-hikers hadn't checked in at Neal Gap like they were supposed to. College kids from Ohio, hiking the AT southbound. Their parents were worried. Probably just running late, said Davis, the other ranger on duty. He was younger than me, only been on the job 2 years. Still had that optimism. You know how hikers are. They see a nice view, they stop for 3 hours. Maybe, I said. But something felt off. These kids had been religious about checking in. Their last contact was from Blood Mountain Shelter 2 days ago. I grabbed my pack, first aid kit, rope, GPS, radio, the usual gear. My truck handled the Forest Service road pretty well until about 3 miles from the trailhead. Then I was on foot. The trail was muddy from all the rain, and the sky looked angry. Dark clouds rolling in from the west, moving fast. The hike up to Blood Mountain normally takes about 2 hours. I made it in 90 minutes, pushing hard. Something in my gut told me to hurry. After 13 years in these woods, you learn to trust your gut. The forest felt wrong that day. Too quiet. I'm used to birdsong, squirrels rustling in the leaves, the occasional deer crashing through the underbrush. But there was nothing. Just the sound of my boots on the trail and the wind picking up through the trees. About halfway up, I found the first sign something was really wrong. There, right in the middle of the trail, was a boot. A hiking boot still laced up tight, fresh. Couldn't have been there more than a day or two. I picked it up. Size 9, women's. There was still a sock inside. Who loses a boot and doesn't go back for it? I radioed down to Davis. Found a boot on the trail, looks recent. Continuing up to the shelter. Static crackled back. Copy that. Storm's coming in fast, John. You might want to... The radio cut out. Just D air. I smacked it a few times, but nothing. Great. Just great. The wind was really howling now, bending the trees sideways. Thunder rumbled in the distance. I picked up my pace, almost jogging up the rocky trail. My knees weren't what they used to be. Too many jumps out of planes back in my Army days. But I pushed through the pain. When I finally reached the stone shelter at the summit, my heart was pounding. The shelter's been there since the 1930s, built by the CCC. Stone walls, wooden roof, 3 sides enclosed. It saved a lot of hikers from bad weather over the years. I called out, "Hello? Anyone here? Forest Service." Nothing. I stepped inside. The shelter was empty, but someone had been there recently. 2 sleeping bags were laid out on the wooden platform. A camp stove sat in the corner. Backpacks leaned against the wall, but no hikers. Then I saw it. On the stone wall, scratched deep into the rock, were words. "It comes in the rain." The letters looked fresh, carved frantically, like whoever did it was in a hurry. Below the words was a symbol I didn't recognize, a circle with lines radiating out from it, and what looked like drops falling from the bottom. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my camera and took a picture. Protocol. Document everything. That's when I heard the scream. It came from somewhere down the mountain to the east. A woman's scream, high and terrified, cut short like someone had flipped a switch. I ran. I crashed down the trail, sliding on the wet leaves, grabbing trees to keep from falling. The scream had come from the direction of the Byron Reese Trail, a side path that loops around the mountain. It's rockier, steeper, less maintained. Most hikers avoid it. "Hello!" I shouted. "Forest Service! Call out if you can hear me!" Another scream, closer now. I could hear words this time, though they were hard to make out. "Help! Please! It's—" Then nothing. I burst through a stand of mountain laurel and nearly fell off a cliff. The trail dropped away here, a 15-foot ledge down to a rocky outcrop. And there, at the bottom, I saw her. A young woman, maybe 22, 23. Blonde hair matted with mud and blood. She was pressed against the rock face, staring at something I couldn't see. Her eyes were huge, terrified. One of her feet was bare. The boot I'd found on the trail must have been hers. "I'm coming down," I called. "Stay right there." I found a way down, half climbing, half sliding. When I got to her, she grabbed my jacket so hard I thought she'd tear it. "We have to go," she gasped. "We have to go now. It's coming back." "What's coming back? Where's your hiking partner?" She started crying, deep sobs that shook her whole body. "Connor. It took Connor. Oh God, it drank him. It drank him." I thought she was in shock. Hypothermia, maybe. The rain had started, cold and hard, and she was soaked through. Okay, I said, using my calm voice, the one I used with scared hikers and injured climbers. "Let's get you warm. Tell me what happened." "We were in the shelter," she said, her teeth chattering. "Last night, we heard something outside, like footsteps but wrong. Too heavy. Connor went out to look with his flashlight." She paused, swallowing hard. "He started screaming. I ran out and there was something standing over him. Tall, so tall. Its skin was dark red, like old blood. And its eyes, God, its eyes were white. No pupils. Just white." I pulled a space blanket from my pack and wrapped it around her. "You're safe now. That's shock talking. Sometimes the mind plays tricks." "I'm not crazy," she screamed. "It was real. It held Connor down and it bit him in the neck, and it drank. I could hear it drinking, and Connor stopped moving, stopped fighting, and it just kept drinking until—" She broke down completely. I held her while she cried, my mind racing. Animal attack. Had to be. Maybe a bear, though I'd never heard of a bear attacking like that, and bears definite. Ely didn't bite people's necks. "Where's Connor now?" I asked quietly. "It dragged him away, into the woods. I ran all night. I fell, lost my boot, but I just kept running." The rain was coming down harder now. Lightning flashed, and in that brief moment of light, I saw something that made my blood run cold. Footprints. They led from the base of the cliff into the forest. But they weren't human footprints. They were too big, maybe 14 inches long, and they weren't bear prints either. These had toes, 5 long toes, but the shape was all wrong, too narrow, too deep. And there was something else. Around each footprint, the ground was stained dark. Even in the rain, I could see it. Red, like the thing had been bleeding as it walked. Thunder crashed overhead, so loud it felt like the mountain was splitting apart. "We need to move," I said. "Can you walk?" She nodded, still shaking. I helped her up, and we started back toward the main trail. The girl, she told me her name was Amy, leaned heavily on me. Every few steps, she'd look back over her shoulder, eyes wide with terror. We were maybe 100 yards from the shelter when we heard it, a sound like nothing I'd ever heard before. Part scream, part roar. all wrong. It echoed through the trees, seeming to come from everywhere at once. Amy froze, her fingernails digging into my arm. "It found us," she whispered. The forest around us had gone completely silent. No rain sounds, no wind, no thunder. Just that terrible quiet before something bad happens. Then I saw it, a shape moving through the trees. Tall, at least 7 feet. It walked upright like a man, but the proportions were wrong. Arms too long, legs bent backward at the knee. And the skin, God, Amy had been right. It looked like dried blood, dark red and leathery. It turned its head toward us, and I saw those white eyes, empty, hungry. My service weapon was in my hand before I even thought about it. Glock 22, 15 rounds. I'd never fired it at anything but paper targets and one rabid raccoon. "Get behind me," I told Amy. The thing took a step forward. Then another. It moved wrong, too smooth, like it was gliding more than walking. I could see its chest now. There was a wound there, a massive gash right where the heart should be. Old and scarred over, but still somehow wet-looking. "Stop!" I shouted. "Forest Service, stop or I'll shoot!" It didn't stop. It smiled. God help me, it smiled. Showed teeth that were too long, too sharp, stained dark. I fired. The shot echoed like a cannon blast. I'm a good shot, expert marksman in the Rangers. I put that round center mass right in the chest. The thing stumbled back, looked down at the new hole in its chest. Then it looked back up at me, and it laughed. The sound was horrible, wet and bubbling, like it was drowning. Then it charged. I fired again, and again, and again. Each shot hit. I know they hit, but it kept coming. Amy was screaming. I was screaming. The rain was pounding down so hard I could barely see. The thing was maybe 10 feet away when lightning struck. I mean right there, right in front of us. The bolt hit a tree 5 feet from where the creature stood, and the tree exploded. Bark and wood flew everywhere. The flash was so bright I was blind for a few seconds. When my vision cleared, the thing was gone. Just gone. Amy and I stood there in the rain, both of us breathing hard. My ears were ringing from the lightning strike. The tree was on fire despite the rain, hissing and smoking. Is it? Amy couldn't finish the sentence. I didn't answer. I was staring at the ground where the thing had been standing. There were no footprints. The ground was untouched, like nothing had been there at all. But I'd seen it. We'd both seen it. I'd shot it 5 times. "We need to get off this mountain," I said. "Right now." We ran. We made it back to the stone shelter just as the storm really hit. Rain came down in sheets, and the wind was strong enough to bend the trees horizontal. We had no choice but to wait it out. Inside the shelter, Amy huddled in a corner while I tried to get my radio working. Nothing but static. Cell phones didn't work up here. Either too remote. We were cut off. "Tell me everything," I said to Amy. "From the beginning. Don't leave anything out." She took a shaky breath. "Connor and I got to the shelter yesterday afternoon. We were the only ones here. We made dinner, talked about the hike. It was nice. Normal. Then it got dark. We were in our sleeping bags when we heard it. Something moving around outside. Heavy footsteps. I thought maybe it was a bear, so we stayed quiet, but then what? Then it spoke." I stared at her. "It spoke? What did it say?" "It said, 'I smell the blood.' Just that, over and over. 'I smell the blood.' Connor thought someone was messing with us. He grabbed his flashlight and went outside to tell them to cut it out." Amy's hands were shaking as she continued. "He was only out there for maybe 10 seconds before he screamed. I grabbed my flashlight and ran out, and that's when I saw it. Standing over Connor. It had him pinned to the ground, and it bit him. Right here." She touched her neck. "And it drank." I could hear Connor choking, trying to fight, but it was too strong, and the thing just drank him dry. like he was a juice box. I felt sick. And then it dropped Connor's body and looked at me, said, "Run, little blood, run far. I will drink you tomorrow." Then it picked up Connor and walked into the woods. I ran. I've been running ever since. A chill went down my spine. The thing had told her it would come back. It was playing with her, hunting her for sport. Thunder boomed overhead. Through the open side of the shelter, I could see lightning dancing between the peaks. The storm was right on top of us. "John," Amy said quietly, "what was that thing?" "I don't know, but I've got to find Connor. If there's any chance. He's dead. I watched him die. I still have to look, and I have to get you off this mountain." I tried the radio again. Still, nothing but static. The storm was blocking everything. That's when I heard voices outside. "Help! Someone help us!" I grabbed my flashlight and looked out. Through the rain, I could see lights bobbing up the trail. 3 of them. People. "Stay here," I told Amy. Then I ran out into the storm. 3 hikers were stumbling up the path, supporting each other. Day hikers by the look of their light packs. 2 men and a woman, all of them soaked and terrified. "Thank God," one of the men gasped. "There's something in the woods. It's chasing us." "Get inside," I ordered. "Move." We all piled into the shelter. The new arrivals collapsed on the floor, breathing hard. The woman was crying. "What did you see?" I asked. "Something impossible," the other man said. He was older, maybe 50, with gray hair plastered to his head. "We were hiking the Reese Trail when we heard something moving parallel to us. We thought it was a deer, but then we saw it through the trees. Tall, wrong. It was smiling at us." "Did it attack you?" "Not yet, but it followed us. For miles. Every time we looked back, it was there, getting closer. We ran, and that's when we heard you had lights on up here." Amy was staring at them. "It's playing with us, like it played with me and Connor." "Connor?" the woman asked. "Her hiking partner," I said. "He's dead." The words hung in the air. Outside, the storm raged. Lightning flashed so frequently it was almost like daylight. "We need to stay together," I said. 6 of us. We'll wait out the storm, then head down at first light. There's safety in numbers." But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't true. That thing had lifted a grown man like he was nothing. What could 6 of us do against something that shrugged off bullets? The older man introduced himself as David. The younger guy was Marcus. The woman was Rachel. They were all from Atlanta, up for a day hike before, or the weather turned bad. "My car's at the trailhead," David said. "If we can get to it." Lightning struck close by, so close the thunder was immediate, deafening. In the flash of light, I saw something that made my heart stop. There was something standing outside the shelter, right outside, just standing there in the rain, watching us. In the next lightning flash, it was gone. "Did you?" Marcus started. "Yeah," I said. "I saw it." We all moved to the back of the shelter, as far from the open side as we could get. I had my gun out. David had a knife. Marcus had a hiking pole. Not much against something that didn't seem to care about bullets. "John," Amy whispered, "why is it doing this?" I thought about the name of the mountain, about the Cherokee and Creek warriors who died here, about the Civil War deserters, about all the blood that had soaked into this ground over hundreds of years. "This is Blood Mountain," I said quietly. The Cherokee called it Inota. There are stories, old stories, about a spirit that— "John, you don't believe in that stuff," David said. "You said so yourself. There's got to be a rational explanation." "I shot it 5 times, I said. "Center mass." It laughed and kept coming. "You tell me the rational explanation." No one had an answer for that. We sat in silence for a while. The storm wasn't letting up. If anything, it was getting worse. The temperature had dropped too. Our breath was starting to fog. Rachel was the first one to notice the smell. "Does anyone else smell that?" she asked. We all did. Copper, thick and sweet, the smell of old blood. Then we heard the voice. It came from just outside the shelter. Deep. Wrong. Like someone talking with a mouthful of water. 6 little bloods. So much to drink. I will be strong tonight. Marcus jumped up. We have to run. We have to... No! I grabbed him. It wants us to run. To separate. We stay together. Wise blood, the voice said. It sounded amused. But it will not save you. This is my mountain, my hunting ground. You are meat. You are drink. You are mine. Lightning flashed. In that instant of light, I saw it clearly. It was standing right at the edge of the shelter, just outside the protection of the roof. Taller than I'd thought, maybe 8 feet. Its skin wasn't just red, it was covered in symbols, carved into the flesh. Cherokee symbols, I realized, war markings. And its chest, where I'd shot it, the wounds were already closed, healed over, like they'd never been there. The thing reached out one long arm, stretching it toward us. The hand was massive, with fingers that ended in black claws. Who dies first? It asked. That's when David did something stupid and brave. He charged the thing with his knife raised high. No! I shouted. But it was too late. David ran out into the rain, screaming, and plunged his knife into the creature's stomach. The thing looked down at the knife, then it grabbed David by the head with one hand and lifted him off the ground. Brave blood, it said. I will drink you slow. What happened next, I can't describe without feeling sick. The thing bit David's throat and began to drink. We could see it, could hear it. David kicked and struggled for maybe 30 seconds. Then he went limp. The creature dropped his body like garbage and looked at us. Blood, David's blood, ran down its chin. It smiled. Who is next? Marcus broke. He just broke. Screamed and ran out the other side of the shelter, down the trail into the darkness. Rachel and the other Amy screamed after him. I grabbed my flashlight, but before I could go after Marcus, lightning struck again. This time it hit Marcus directly. The bolt caught him maybe 50 yards down the trail. For a split second, he lit up like a light bulb. Then he was falling, smoking, dead before he hit the ground. The creature laughed. That horrible, wet laugh. The mountain feeds me, it said. The storm obeys me. You cannot run. You cannot hide. You can only die. Then it stepped, back into the rain, and vanished. We were down to 4. We dragged David's body into the shelter. His neck was torn open, ragged, and he was pale. So pale, like every drop of blood had been taken. Rachel was hyperventilating. Amy, the first Amy, had gone quiet, staring at nothing. The younger Marcus was dead in the rain, struck by lightning that had come from clear across the mountain. I was trying to think, trying to find a solution. But what do you do against something that controls the weather, something that heals from bullets? The symbols, Amy said suddenly. I looked at her. What? The symbols carved into its body. They're Cherokee. My grandmother was Cherokee. She told me stories about the blood drinkers, warriors who died in battle but wouldn't accept death. They came back wrong, hungry. How do you kill them? You don't. But you can send them back. With tobacco and sage. And fire. Lots of fire. I looked around the shelter. We don't have any of those things. Yes, we do. Amy pointed to Rachel's pack. You're a smoker. I saw the pack in your bag. Rachel's hands were shaking as she pulled out a pack of cigarettes. Marlboro Reds. She also had a lighter. Tobacco, Amy said. It's not traditional, but it might work. And we can make sage tea from the plants growing around here. I saw some on the way up. That's insane, Rachel said. You want to fight that thing with cigarettes and weeds? You got a better idea? We didn't. While Rachel and Amy went out into the rain to gather sage, staying close to the shelter, moving fast, I searched the packs the first 2 hikers had left behind. Connor's pack had a small camping stove and fuel. Not much, but better than nothing. By the time the women got back, I had a plan. Crazy, desperate, but a plan. The thing is bound to this mountain, I said. To the battlefield. That's where it died. That's where it's strongest. But that's also where we can send it back. Send it back how? Rachel asked. We go to where the main battle happened. There's a clearing about half a mile from here. The Cherokee marker is there. We burn the tobacco and sage, we call it out, and when it comes, we burn it, Amy finished. It was a terrible plan. We all knew it. But doing nothing meant dying in this shelter, one by one. We gathered everything that could burn, the spare sleeping bags, the guidebooks, even some of the wood from the shelter floor. I soaked it all with camping fuel, made it into a bundle we could carry. When the sun comes up, we move, I said. The storm should break by then. But the storm didn't break. If anything, it got worse. By the time gray dawn light filtered through the rain, the wind was howling like a living thing. We couldn't wait any longer. The four of us left the shelter and headed for the clearing. The trail was a river of mud. Trees had fallen across the path. Twice we had to climb over massive trunks. And all the while I felt it watching us. The thing. The blood drinker. It was out there in the storm, pacing us, waiting. We reached the clearing just as the rain started to ease. The Cherokee marker stood in the center, a stone obelisk with inscriptions. Around it, the ground was stained dark. Centuries of blood had seeped into the soil here. This is it, Amy said. This is where it happened, where it died. We set up our bundle of burnable materials in front of the marker. I crushed the cigarettes and mixed the tobacco with the sage leaves. Then I poured the rest of the camping fuel over everything. When I light this, I said, it's going to come. Be ready. Rachel had found a fallen branch, thick as a baseball bat. Amy had a rock the size of a softball. Not much, but it was something. I lit the fire. The flames caught immediately, jumping high. The sage and tobacco burned with a thick, pungent smoke. It smelled bitter and clean at the same time. For a long moment, nothing happened. Just us, standing in the rain, watching the fire burn, feeling like idiot. Then the storm stopped. Not slowed, stopped. The rain cut off like someone had shut a faucet. The wind died. The clouds above us started to swirl, forming a circle with the clearing at its center. And the blood drinker came. It walked out of the forest like it had all the time in the world. In the gray morning light, I could see it clearly for the first time. It had been a man once, a Cherokee warrior. The symbols carved into its skin were clan marks and war honors. But something had twisted it, changed it into this hungry, eternal thing. You bring fire to my ground, it said. You dare? This isn't your ground anymore, I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice was. The war is over. The fighting is done. You need to rest. It laughed. Rest? I have drunk the blood of hundreds. I am strong. I am eternal. I am... Amy threw her rock. It hit the thing square in the face. The creature stumbled back, more from surprise than pain. In that second, I grabbed a burning branch from the fire and ran forward. I shoved the flame against its chest, against that old wound where its heart should be. The blood drinker screamed. It was a sound that didn't belong in this world. A sound of rage and pain and something else. Fear. The thing was afraid. The fire caught on its skin, spread. The symbols carved into its flesh began to glow, first red, then white-hot. No! It roared. I will not return. I will not... Lightning struck the creature. But this time it wasn't the blood drinker calling the storm. The lightning came from above, pure and white, and it hit the thing over and over. Each strike made it burn brighter. The blood drinker reached for me. Its claws were inches from my throat. Then it began to crumble. Its skin turned to ash. Its bones turned to dust. In seconds, there was nothing left but a scorched mark on the ground and the smell of burnt meat. The clouds broke apart. Sunlight streamed through. It was over. We found Connor's body a mile from the shelter. The blood drinker had left him in a cave, drained but otherwise intact. We found David and Em. Arcus, too. It took 3 days to get all the bodies off the mountain. The official report said it was an animal attack. A bear, probably. The lightning strikes were just bad luck. The storm was unusual but not impossible. No one mentioned the thing we'd seen. The thing we'd killed. When I tried to talk about it with Amy and Rachel, they both looked at me like I was crazy. "It was a bear, John," Rachel said. "We were scared and confused. The storm made us see things that weren't there." But I knew what I'd seen. What we'd all seen. I went back to Blood Mountain one more time before they closed the trail for the season. Stood in that clearing by the Cherokee marker. The scorched spot on the ground was still there. I brought tobacco. Real tobacco this time, from the Cherokee reservation. Left it by the marker with a prayer I'd learned from Amy's grandmother. The wind picked up as I was leaving. Just for a second. I could have sworn I heard a voice on that wind. Deep, grateful, at peace. "Thank you, Ranger," it seemed to say. I've been doing this job for 15 years now, 2 more than when this all happened. I still patrol Blood Mountain, though they never reopened the Reese Trail. Too dangerous, they say. Too many accidents. My boys are teenagers now. They ask me to tell them scary stories sometimes. I tell them about bears and lost hikers and rough weather. I don't tell them about the blood drinker. But sometimes, on stormy October nights, I look at Blood Mountain from my cabin, and I wonder if it's really gone, or if it's just sleeping, waiting for enough blood to soak into that old battlefield again, waiting to wake up hungry. Last week, 3 hikers went missing near the summit. They found 2 of them yesterday. The 3rd is still out there somewhere. The bodies they found were pale, real pale, and it's been raining a lot lately. I'm heading up the mountain tomorrow, and taking tobacco and sage, just in case. Because once you've seen what I've seen, you learn something important. Some things don't stay dead. Some things just wait. And Blood Mountain has always been very, very patient. My name is Samuel Fitzgerald, but everyone calls me Sam. I've been a ranger here in Monongahela National Forest for 16 years now, and before that, I spent a decade down in the coal mines. My daddy always said I couldn't stay away from the dark places, and I guess he was right. The difference is, now I pull people out of those dark places instead of digging deeper into them. It was March of 1962, and the winter thaw had come early that year. The snow on Seneca Rocks was melting fast, turning every creek into a rushing river and making the ground soft and dangerous. My wife Martha had kissed me goodbye that morning like always, and my 3 kids, Tommy, Sarah, and little Beth, had waved from the porch. Just another Tuesday. Just another day of work. I was sitting in the ranger station drinking coffee and looking over maps when the call came in. A group of college kids from Pittsburgh hadn't checked in from their weekend spelunking trip. 4 of them, all experienced cavers, had gone into the old Blackburn mine 2 days ago. They were supposed to be back by Sunday night. It was now Tuesday morning. "That's the old iron mine, isn't it?" asked my partner, Jim Wheeler. Jim was younger than me, only been ranging for 5 years, but he was good in a crisis. "Thought that place was sealed up after the accident." "It was," I said, pulling out the old survey maps from 1891. "But you know how it is. Time and weather open things back up. Kids probably found a way in through one of the collapsed sections." The Blackburn mine had a bad history. In 1893, there was a cave-in that trapped 47 miners in the lower levels. The company tried to dig them out for 3 days, but another collapse killed 2 rescue workers. After that, they just sealed it up and walked away, left those men down there to die in the dark. Their families never even got the bodies back. I'd heard stories about that mine my whole life. Every coal miner in West Virginia knew about Blackburn. Some of the old-timers said you could still hear the trapped miners screaming if you got too close to the sealed entrances. Said strange things happened in those tunnels. Tools gone missing, lights going out for no reason, cold spots in the summer heat. My daddy called it superstition, said dead men don't scream and caves are just caves. I believed him. I'd spent too much time underground to believe in ghost stories. Jim and I loaded up the truck with rescue gear, ropes, lights, first aid kits, emergency rations. The drive out to Blackburn took 40 minutes on rough forest roads, and the last 2 miles we had to hike because the truck couldn't make it through the mud. The whole time, my stomach felt tight. 16 years of rescue work gives you an instinct for when something's wrong, and everything about this felt wrong. The mine entrance was exactly where the maps said it would be, but the rockfall that had sealed it was partially collapsed. Someone had squeezed through the gap. You could see where the rocks had been moved recently. Boot prints in the mud led straight into the darkness. "Think they're still alive?" Jim asked, staring at the entrance. "Only one way to find out," I said, but my voice sounded strange even to my own ears. We radioed back to the station, letting them know we were going in. Then we switched on our headlamps and squeezed through the gap. The air that came out of that hole was wrong, cold and damp and smelling like something rotten. Not the clean mineral smell of a normal cave. This was organic. This was decay. The first tunnel was narrow, the ceiling low enough that we had to duck. The walls were shored up with old timbers from the 1890s, and most of them were sagging or cracked. Water dripped everywhere, and in some places it pooled on the floor, reflecting our lights back at us like dead eyes. We walked for maybe 20 minutes, calling out for the missing kids, listening to our voices echo down the tunnels. The mine branched off in multiple directions, and we marked our path with chalk so we wouldn't get lost. That's when I started noticing the smell was getting stronger. And there was something else, a sound, like wet breathing, coming from somewhere deeper in the mine. "You hear that?" Jim whispered. I nodded. Probably just water dripping. These old mines play tricks with sound. But I didn't believe my own words. That wasn't water. That was breathing. Something down here was breathing. We found the first sign of the kids about 50 yards deeper. It was a backpack, torn open, its contents scattered across the tunnel floor. Granola bars, a water bottle, a notebook with Jenny Martinez Cave Survey Log written on the cover. The pages were wet and the ink was running, but I could still read the last entry. Level 2, Shaft C. Found something strange. Going deeper to investigate. 3:47 p.m. Saturday. That was 2 days ago. "Sam," Jim said, and his voice was shaking. "Look at the walls." I turned my light on the tunnel walls. There were marks scratched into the rock, deep gouges that ran in parallel lines like something with claws had dragged itself along. The scratches were fresh, and they were heading deeper into the mine. That's when we heard the scream. The scream came from somewhere below us, echoing up through the tunnels like it was bouncing off 100 walls before it reached our ears. It was high-pitched and desperate, cut off suddenly by a wet, tearing sound that made my blood go cold. "Move!" I shouted, and we ran. The tunnel sloped downward, getting steeper as we went. The water on the floor was deeper now, sometimes up to our ankles. Our lights bounced wildly as we ran, throwing crazy shadows on the walls. The breathing sound was louder now, and underneath it I could hear something else. A clicking noise, like someone tapping rocks together in a rhythm. We came out into a larger chamber, maybe 30 feet across. The ceiling was higher here, supported by massive timber posts that looked ready to collapse. In the center of the room was a shaft leading down into darkness. And at the edge of that shaft, we found Jenny Martinez. At least we found part of her. I won't describe everything I saw. Some images stick with you forever, and there's no point sharing that burden. But I'll say this. Whatever killed Jenny Martinez wasn't an animal. Animals kill to eat or defend themselves. This was something else. This was violence for the sake of violence. Jim threw up. I didn't blame him. I'd seen men die in mine collapses, seen bodies crushed and broken, but this was different. This was wrong in a way that made my brain want to shut down. "We need to get out of here," Jim said, wiping his mouth. "We need to call for backup. The clicking sound got louder. I spun around, my light cutting through the darkness. For just a second, less than a second, I saw something move at the far end of the chamber. Something big and pale, pressed flat against the wall like a spider. Then it was gone, disappeared into a side tunnel so fast I almost thought I'd imagined it. "Did you see that?" I whispered. Jim was already backing toward the entrance. "We're leaving, now." But as we turned to go, we heard voices coming from deeper in the mine, from down in that black shaft. Young voices, crying for help. "Please, we're trapped. Jenny, where are you? Oh God, please help us." The 3 other kids were still alive, still down there, still calling for help. I looked at Jim. He looked at me. We both knew what we had to do, even though every instinct in my body was screaming at me to run. "Radio for backup," I said. "Tell them we need everyone. Cave rescue, state police, everyone. Tell them to bring guns." "Guns? Sam, what are we—" "Just do it." Jim got on the radio while I secured a rope to one of the timber posts. The voices from below were getting more desperate, more scared. I could hear water sloshing around down there, and that clicking sound was back, circling around us in the darkness. The rope went down about 40 feet before it hit bottom. I could see water reflecting in the light from my headlamp. The lower levels were flooded, just like the old maps said they would be. The voices were coming from somewhere past the water. "Sam, I can't get a signal," Jim said. "The rock's too thick. I'll have to go back to the surface." "Then go. Run as fast as you can. I'll keep these kids alive until you get back." Jim looked at me like I was crazy. Maybe I was, but I couldn't leave those kids down there alone. Not with that thing. 30 minutes, Jim said. "I'll be back in 30 minutes with help." Then he was gone, running back up the tunnel, his light bouncing away until I was alone in the dark, with just my headlamp and whatever was clicking in the shadows. I started down the rope. The descent felt like it took forever. My hands were slick with sweat despite the cold, and the rope kept spinning, making me dizzy. The clicking was following me down, moving along the walls of the shaft. I could hear it getting closer, hear something breathing just out of sight. My feet hit water. It was freezing, came up to my waist. The cold took my breath away, made my muscles lock up. I forced myself to move, wading forward with my light cutting through the darkness. "Hello?" I called out. "This is Ranger Fitzgerald. Can you hear me?" "Here! We're over here!" I followed the voices through a flooded tunnel. The water got deeper, up to my chest now. My teeth were chattering so hard I thought they'd break. The tunnel opened into another chamber, partially flooded. And there, huddled on a small dry ledge about 6 feet above the water, were 3 kids. 2 boys and a girl, all in their early 20s, all looking like they'd seen hell. "Thank God," one of the boys sobbed. "Thank God you found us. Jenny, did you find Jenny?" I didn't answer that question. Instead, I asked, "Can you move? Anyone injured?" "Michael's leg is broken," the girl said. She had short, dark hair and was shivering so hard she could barely talk. "We've been stuck here since yesterday. The water keeps rising. And there's something down here with us. Something that took Jenny." "I know," I said. "Help is coming. We just need to—" The clicking stopped. In 16 years of rescue work, I'd learned that silence is often worse than noise. Noise tells you where the danger is. Silence means the danger is everywhere. The water next to me rippled, not from me moving, from something underneath. "Get ready to climb," I whispered to the kids. "When I say run, you run back the way I came. Don't stop. Don't look back. Just run." "What about you?" the girl asked. "I'll be right behind you." That was a lie. But it was a kind lie. The water exploded. What came out of that water wasn't something I can properly explain. My brain tried to make sense of it, tried to fit it into categories like bear or man or something natural. But it wouldn't fit. It was too wrong, too impossible. It was big, maybe 7 feet tall when it stood up in the water. Its skin was pale, almost white, like something that had never seen the sun. But it wasn't smooth. It was covered in what looked like scales or maybe scabs, rough and wet. Its arms were too long, hanging down past where its knees should be, and its hands ended in claws that clicked together when it moved. But the worst part was its face. It had human eyes. Confused, angry human eyes set in a face that was stretched and wrong, with a mouth full of teeth that were filed to points. And when it opened that mouth, it made a sound that was halfway between a scream and a laugh. "Run!" I shouted. The kids scrambled off their ledge and splashed into the water. I fired my flare gun at the thing. It was all I had, and the bright red light made it shriek and cover its face. It gave us maybe 3 seconds. We ran. The flooded tunnel felt twice as long going back. The water dragged at us, trying to slow us down. Behind us, I could hear the thing splashing after us, clicking and screaming. It was fast in the water, much faster than us. Michael, the kid with the broken leg, was falling behind. The other boy, his name was Tyler, was trying to help him, but they were both too slow. "Keep going," I yelled to the girl. "Don't stop." I turned back for the boys. Michael was white with pain, his leg twisted at a wrong angle. Tyler was crying, pulling at his friend, trying to drag him faster. The creature was right behind them. I grabbed Michael's other arm and we hauled him forward. The rope was just ahead, hanging down from the shaft. If we could just reach the rope, Tyler screamed. I turned and saw the creature had him by the ankle, pulling him backward through the water. Tyler's fingernails scraped against the rock wall, leaving bloody trails. He was screaming for his mother. I had to make a choice: save Tyler and lose Michael and maybe myself, or save Michael and lose Tyler for sure. I made the wrong choice. Or maybe the right choice. I still don't know. I pushed Michael toward the rope. "Climb, don't look back, climb." Then I went back for Tyler. The creature was dragging him into deeper water. I could only see Tyler's head now, see his mouth opening and closing, gasping for air. The clicking was so loud it hurt my ears. I grabbed Tyler's hand, pulled with everything I had. For a second, I thought I might actually get him free. For a second, I thought we might make it. Then the creature pulled back harder, and Tyler slipped through my fingers. He went under. The water turned red. The clicking became a wet, chewing sound. I ran back to the rope where Michael and the girl, her name was Lisa, were trying to climb with frozen, shaking hands. Michael couldn't pull himself up with his broken leg. He kept slipping back down. "Go!" I shouted at Lisa. "Get up there and pull him from above." She climbed like a spider, fast and desperate. I stood at the bottom of the rope, watching the tunnel behind me. The water had stopped moving. Everything was quiet again. Then I saw it coming through the water. Slow now, patient. It knew we were trapped. It knew there was nowhere for us to go except up that rope, one at a time, slow and helpless. It was smiling. I swear to God it was smiling. "Hurry!" I screamed up the shaft. Michael was halfway up now. Lisa was at the top, reaching down to grab his hand. I started climbing below him, my boots slipping on the wet rope. The creature reached the bottom just as I got 10 feet up. It looked up at me with those human eyes. Then it started to climb. Not the rope, the wall. It climbed the shaft wall like a spider, its claws digging into the rock, moving faster than we could ever hope to climb. It was going to reach the top before us. It was going to be waiting when we got up there. "Lisa," I yelled, "get Michael out and run. Don't wait for me. Run back to the surface." "What about you?" "I'll find another way. Just go." Another lie. But I was getting good at those. Michael reached the top and Lisa pulled him over the edge. I could hear them scrambling away, hear Michael crying in pain as he dragged his broken leg. Then I heard something else. Footsteps. Running footsteps coming down the tunnel. Sam, where are you?" Jim. Jim was back with help. The creature heard them too. It stopped climbing, turned its head toward the sound of approaching voices. For a moment, it seemed confused, like it was trying to decide between the prey above and the prey coming from the side. I made the decision for it. I pulled out my knife, just a small folding blade, nothing special, and threw it as hard as I could. It bounced off the creature's shoulder, barely scratched it, but it got its attention. It looked back at me, and then it dropped it. Ped. We hit the water together. The impact knocked the air out of my lungs. The creature's claws raked across my chest, tearing through my jacket and shirt. I felt its breath on my face, smelled the rot coming from its mouth. Then lights filled the tunnel. Bright electric lights. Flashlights from the rescue team. The creature shrieked, that horrible half-scream, half-laugh, and dove under the water. I felt it brush past me as it disappeared into the flooded tunnels below. Hands grabbed me, pulled me up. Jim's face appeared above me, and behind him I saw 3 other rangers and 2 state police officers, all armed, all looking terrified. "What the hell was that thing?" one of the cops asked. "We need to get out of here," I said. "Now." before it comes back. We found Lisa and Michael in the first chamber, huddled together near Jenny's body. Lisa was in shock, just rocking back and forth. Michael had passed out from the pain. We carried them both out. It took 20 minutes to get back to the surface, 20 minutes of me constantly looking over my shoulder, expecting to hear that clicking sound again. But the mine stayed quiet. When we finally emerged into daylight, I fell to my knees and kissed the ground. The sun had never felt so good. The air had never tasted so sweet. But even then, I knew we weren't done. Because back in that mine, in the darkness and the water, something was still alive, still hungry, still waiting. They wanted to seal the mine. The state police, the Forest Service, even the mining company that technically still owned the land. Everyone agreed the mine should be filled with concrete and forgotten. But I couldn't forget. Tyler's face kept me awake at night. The sound of him screaming for his mother played over and over in my head. And I kept thinking about those 47 miners from 1893, the ones who were left to die in the dark. 3 days after the rescue, I went to the town library and looked up everything I could find about the Blackburn mine disaster. Most of it was old newspaper articles, but there was one thing that caught my attention. A letter from the mining company to the state governor, dated 3 weeks after the collapse. The letter talked about strange reports from the rescue workers before the second collapse. They'd heard sounds from the sealed sections, not sounds of men calling for help, sounds of men screaming and fighting, sounds of something else moving in the darkness. The rescue team had found marks on the tunnel walls, deep scratches made by something with claws. One worker reported seeing a pale figure moving in the flooded sections. His report was dismissed as hysteria from breathing bad air. But I knew what he'd seen, the same thing I'd seen. And I knew why. Those 47 miners hadn't just died in the dark. They'd survived. Some of them, anyway. Survived in the flooded lower levels where there were underground streams and blind cave fish. Survived for weeks, maybe months, slowly going mad with hunger and darkness. And when the hunger got bad enough, they'd done what people do when there's no other choice. They'd eaten each other. 7 decades of living in the dark. 7 decades of feeding on whatever fell into those tunnels, animals, insects, each other. 7 decades of changing, adapting, becoming something that wasn't quite human anymore. I didn't tell anyone my theory. They would have thought I was crazy. Maybe I was. But I knew I couldn't let that mine get sealed, not with that thing still alive down there. On the 4th night, I went back. I didn't tell Jim, didn't tell Martha, just took my gear and drove out to Blackburn in the dark. The mine entrance had been boarded up, but the boards came off easily enough. I went in alone with 3 electric lanterns, a hunting rifle, and no plan except to kill what needed killing. The mine felt different this time, quieter, like it was holding its breath, waiting for me. I followed my chalk marks from before, down through the tunnels to the flooded chamber. The water level had dropped. The thaw was ending, the snow melt slowing down. I could see the ledge where we'd found the kids, and below it, I could see something else. A nest. It was made of bones and torn clothing, built up on a dry section of rock just above the waterline. And in that nest were things I didn't want to look at too closely. Things that told me Jenny and Tyler hadn't been the first people to go missing near Blackburn Mine over the years. The clicking started behind me. I spun around, bringing up the rifle. The creature was standing in the tunnel entrance, blocking my way out. Up close, in the bright light of my lanterns, I could see it more clearly. It was definitely human once, or human-shaped anyway. But whatever it had become down here in the dark, whatever it had eaten and survived and changed into, was something else entirely. We stared at each other, those confused, angry eyes looking at me. And for just a second, I saw something in those eyes that made my throat tight. Fear. It was afraid. This thing that had killed 4 people, this monster from the darkness, was afraid of me, afraid of the light, afraid of being discovered after 70 years of hiding. I should have pulled the trigger right then, should have ended it. But I hesitated, because I was thinking about those trapped miners, about how they must have screamed and begged while the company sealed them in, about how they must have held on to their humanity as long as they could before the hunger and the darkness took it away. The creature took 2 steps toward me, slow, cautious steps. It clicked its claws together softly, almost questioning, like it was trying to communicate, like it remembered, somewhere deep down, how to be something other than a monster. I raised the rifle. "I'm sorry," I said. "I'm so sorry this happened to you." Then I fired. The shot echoed through the tunnels like thunder. The creature shrieked and fell back into the water. But it didn't die. It thrashed and splashed, screaming that horrible "osh." Alf Human's scream. I fired again, and again, and again. Each shot seemed to make it angry rather than dead. It came out of the water, fast and furious, its claws reaching for me. I stumbled backward, my boots slipping on the wet rock. That's when I realized the truth. I couldn't kill it. Not with bullets. Not with anything I'd brought. It had survived 70 years in conditions that should have killed it 100 times over. It had adapted to the darkness, to the cold, to the hunger. It was built to survive, but it still had one weakness: the light. I grabbed one of the electric lanterns and threw it directly at the creature's face. The bulb shattered, and bright white light exploded in the darkness. The creature screamed and covered its eyes, stumbling backward. I grabbed the second lantern, threw it. More light, more screaming. The third lantern I kept in my hand, holding it up like a weapon. The creature backed away from the light, clicking and hissing. Its pale skin was actually smoking where the light hit it directly. 70 years in total darkness had made it more than just sensitive to light. Light actually hurt it. I advanced, holding the lantern high. The creature backed up toward the shaft, toward the deep water. "Go back down," I said. "Go back down to the dark where you came from, and stay there." It hesitated at the edge of the shaft. Those human eyes looked at me one more time, and then it jumped, disappearing into the black water below. I waited, listening. For a long time, I heard nothing. Then, from deep below, I heard the clicking sound getting quieter, moving away, going deeper into the flooded sections where even I couldn't follow. I left the lantern on the ledge, still burning bright, and I climbed back up to the surface. They sealed the mine 2 days later, used 50 tons of concrete to fill the main shaft and all the entrances we could find. Forest Service put up signs warning people to stay away. The story made the newspapers for about a week, then disappeared. The official report said Jenny Martinez and Tyler Chen died in a pool. Cave-in, accidental deaths during unauthorized spelunking. Lisa and Michael confirmed the story. They didn't want to talk about what they really saw down there, and I didn't blame them. Jim never asked me why I went back to the mine alone, but sometimes I catch him looking at me with a question in his eyes that he's too afraid to ask out loud. Martha knows something changed in me. I wake up sometimes in the middle of the night covered in sweat, hearing clicking sounds that aren't there. My kids ask me why I don't take them camping anymore. I tell them I'm just getting old. That was 6 months ago. The mine stays sealed. The forest stays quiet. But sometimes, when I'm doing my rounds near Seneca Rocks, I stop by the old Blackburn site. I stand there and listen. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, I think I can hear something deep underground. A clicking sound. A scraping sound. The sound of something moving through flooded tunnels in the dark. I tell myself it's just my imagination. Just the wind through the rocks. Just water moving through underground streams. But I know the truth. The concrete seal is strong, but the mine goes deep. Real deep. And there are other tunnels down there. Other ways in and out that aren't on any map. Tunnels that were carved out 70 years ago by men who were trying to escape. Tunnels that might lead anywhere. Sometimes I drive past the Henderson property, 12 miles west of the mine. They've got a barn with a storm cellar underneath, built over what used to be an old mining access shaft. The cellar door is always open now. Mrs. Henderson says they hear strange sounds at night. Clicking sounds. She thinks it's rats. I haven't told her different. Sometimes I think about going back down there, taking better lights, better weapons, hunting that thing through the tunnels until one of us doesn't come back up, making sure it can never hurt anyone else. But then I think about those eyes, those confused, human eyes, and I think about what that creature used to be, before the darkness and the hunger changed it into something else. Those miners didn't choose what happened to them. They didn't choose to be sealed up and left to die. They didn't choose to survive or what they had to do to stay alive. They were victims first, before they became monsters. So I leave the mine sealed. I keep my mouth shut. I do my job and go home to my family and try not to think about what's down there in the dark. But I keep my rifle loaded now. And I keep electric lanterns in every room of my house. And sometimes, late at night, I sit on my porch and listen to the sounds coming from the forest. The woods are full of dark places, full of old mines and forgotten tunnels, full of things that happened a long time ago and never got properly buried. And sometimes, those things come back. My name is Samuel Fitzgerald. I'm a ranger in Monongahela National Forest. I've been doing this job for 16 years, and I'm good at it. But there are some things in these woods that I can't protect people from. Some things that live in the spaces between the maps. Some things that wait in the dark. If you ever come to West Virginia, if you ever decide to explore one of these old mines, remember this. Not every hole in the ground is empty. Not everything that lives underground is natural. And if you hear a clicking sound in the darkness, if you see something pale moving just out of sight, do what I should have done from the very beginning. Run. Don't stop to look back. Don't try to understand. Don't try to save anyone. Just run. Because 70 years in the dark changes things. Changes them in ways that can't be changed back. Creates things that shouldn't exist. Things that are hungry. Things that remember, somewhere deep down, what it felt lumped. Like to be human. And those things are the most dangerous of all. My name is Bill Harrington, and I've been a ranger in the Great Smoky Mountains for 14 years. I know these mountains like I know my own backyard. Every trail, every creek, every hollow between the ridges. I grew up in these parts, worked in the coal mines with my brother before the collapse took him. That's when I switched to ranger work. Figured I'd spent enough time underground. I never believed in the old stories. You know the ones. Mountain devils, giants in the hollers, Cherokee legends about cannibals. My grandma used to tell them, but I figured they were just tales to keep kids from wandering off. I'd walked every inch of these mountains. I'd been in caves where the silence pressed on your ears. I'd been lost in fog so thick I couldn't see my own boots. Never saw anything I couldn't explain. That changed in October of 1976. It was a Tuesday morning when the call came in. A family from Ohio, mom, dad, 3 kids, hadn't shown up at their hotel. They'd gone hiking to Cataract Falls the day before. Popular trail, easy hike, lots of families do it. Their car was still at the trailhead. I grabbed my pack and headed out with Rangers Mitchell and Kowalski. The morning was cold, leaves at peak color, frost still white on the shaded parts of the trail. Beautiful day, the kind that brings people from all over to see the mountains. We found their car around 8 in the morning, windows down, doors unlocked, food still in the cooler on the back seat, sandwiches and juice boxes still cold, like they'd just walked away for a minute. Maybe they decided to camp overnight, Mitchell said. He was young. Only been a ranger for 2 years. I shook my head. No camping gear in the car, and the mom called the hotel yesterday afternoon, said they'd be back for dinner. We started up the trail, standard grid search pattern, checking every 20 yards on either side. The forest way was quiet. Too quiet. I didn't think much of it at first. Sometimes the woods get like that before a storm. But there wasn't a cloud in the sky. No birds. No squirrels chattering. Even the creek seemed muted, like someone had turned down the volume. You hear that? Kowalski stopped walking. Hear what? Exactly. Nothing. We kept moving. The trail splits about 2 miles in. Left goes to the falls, right climbs up to Screaming Hollow. Named that because of the way wind moves through the narrow valley. Creates sounds like people yelling. Acoustic anomaly. Nothing more. I found the first track about 50 yards past the split. It was a footprint, barefoot, pressed deep into the mud beside the creek. But it was huge. Had to be size 18, maybe bigger. The toes were spread wide, wider than any human foot I'd ever seen. The print was fresh. Water was still seeping into the depression. "Big guy," Mitchell said, staring at it. "Real big," I muttered. Something about that print bothered me. The depth of it, the way the toes splayed out, like someone carrying a lot of weight, or something. My radio crackled, nothing but static. I tried calling base. More static with something underneath it. Almost sounded like screaming, but that was just the interference. Had to be. "We're in a dead zone," I said. "Iron ore deposits mess with the signal." We followed the trail toward the hollow. Found their stuff about a quarter mile up, backpack with the dad's wallet inside, one of the kids' shoes, a water bottle, all scattered, like they'd dropped them running. That's when my compass started acting funny. The needle spun in circles, wouldn't settle on north. I tapped it, shook it. Nothing. "Mine too," Kowalski said, holding up his compass. The air smelled wrong, like wet dog mixed with something rotten. And the silence. It was getting worse. The kind of quiet that makes your ears ring. Was you aware of your own heartbeat? We should have turned back. That's what protocol says when equipment fails. But a family was missing. 3 kids, youngest was only 6. So we kept going. Into Screaming Hollow. The hollow opened up before us like a mouth. 2 ridgelines rising on either side, thick with rhododendron and mountain laurel. The trail narrowed, hemmed in by rocks and tangled brush. Fog was settling in the low spots even though it was almost noon. I'd been in this hollow maybe a dozen times. Never liked it. Something about the way sound moved through there, the way shadows fell wrong even in full daylight. But I'd never felt what I felt that day, like the place was watching us. We found the next track 20 yards in. Same massive barefoot print, but this one was on top of a boulder 3 feet off the ground. Whatever made it had stepped up on that rock like it was a stair. "How tall would someone have to be to step up there?" Mitchell asked. I didn't answer. I was looking at the trees. Branches were broken 12 feet up, snapped clean off. Fresh breaks, sap still wet. The broken ends pointed deeper into the hollow. "Maybe they climbed," Kowalski said. But he didn't sound convinced. We followed the broken branches. They led us off the trail into thick brush. Thorns caught at my jacket. I pushed through into a small clearing. That's where we found the stone. It was a boulder, had to weigh 200 pounds. It was sitting in the middle of the clearing, and the ground around it was torn up. But what made me stop cold was the distance. This boulder had been thrown. I could see where it came from, a spot maybe 100 yards back, uphill. You could see the depression where it had rested, the track it had made rolling down before it sailed through the air and landed here. Nobody throws a 200-pound rock. Not 100 yards. Not possible. "What the hell?" Mitchell whispered. That's when we heard it. A child's voice, high and scared. "Help us! Daddy, help us!" It came from deeper in the hollow. We all heard it, clear as day. We ran. Crash! Ed through the brush, following the voice. My heart was hammering. Finally, we'd found them. "Where are you?" I shouted. "Help us!" Same voice, same words, same tone. We ran for 5 minutes, following the sound. It stayed the same distance away, never getting closer. And then I realized something that made my blood turn cold. The voice never changed. Same exact words, same exact tone, over and over, like a recording. I stopped running. "Hold up." Mitchell and Kowalski were breathing hard. "What?" Mitchell said. "We need to—" "That's not a kid," I said. We stood there listening. The voice called again. "Help us! Daddy, help us!" But now that I was listening carefully, I could hear it was wrong. Too perfect. Too identical, each time. And underneath it, something else. A rasping, breathing sound. "Back to the trail," I said. "Now." That's not a kid, I repeated. Move. We headed back the way we'd come, or tried to. The hollow all looked the same now. Rhododendron thickets, rocks, fallen logs. I couldn't find our trail. My hands were shaking when I checked my compass again. Still spinning, radio still dead. We walked for 20 minutes trying to get back to the main trail. I knew these woods. I'd been here before. But nothing looked right. The trees seemed closer together. The shadows were too dark. That's when I saw my own boot print. It was in a patch of mud beside a fallen log. Fresh print, my size, my boot tread. And scratched into the mud beside it was a date, 10/15/74, 2 years ago. I'd been in this hollow 2 years ago on a routine patrol. I remembered it because it was my anniversary. I'd been annoyed about working. I'd stopped at this exact log to eat lunch. But the print was fresh. Water was still seeping into it. I looked at my boots. Same tread pattern. Same wear on the right heel. "We need to move," Kowalski said. His voice was tight. "Something's not right here." No kidding. We pushed on. The fog was thicker now, even though it was the middle of the day. Temperature dropping. I could see my breath. That's when Mitchell found the cave. It was hidden behind a curtain of roots and vines, just a black opening in the hillside. The smell coming from it, that wet dog and rot smell, was overpowering. "Don't," I started to say. But Mitchell was already pushing aside the vines, shining his flashlight inside. He made a sound I'll never forget. Not quite a scream. More like all the air had been punched out of him. I looked inside. Bones. Piled 3 feet deep. Human skulls mixed with deer and bear. Arm bones, leg bones, ribs. All gnawed. Teeth marks deep in the marrow. Arranged in patterns like someone had been sorting them. And in the back of the cave, in the deepest shadow, 2 yellow eyes reflected Mitchell's flashlight. Something moved in there. Something big. We ran. I don't remember the first part of that run. Pure panic, crashing through brush, thorns tearing at my face. Behind us, something was moving. I could hear branches breaking, rocks clattering, heavy footsteps that shook the ground. We burst onto the main trail and kept running. My lungs burned. Mitchell was ahead of me, Kowalski behind. The footsteps stayed with us, just out of sight in the trees. Then Mitchell fell. Not tripped. Fell. Thrown down hard like someone had shoved him. He hit the ground and slid, tried to get up. Something grabbed his ankle. I saw it for just a second before it dragged him into the brush. An arm, longer than any human arm, covered in matted hair and mud, with fingers that looked more like claws. Mitchell screamed. Then he was gone. Yanked into the rhododendron thicket like he weighed nothing. Kowalski and I grabbed for him, but we were too slow. The bushes swallowed him up. "Mitchell!" I shouted. His screaming stopped, just cut off mid-breath. The silence that followed was worse than any sound. "We have to go back for him," Kowalski said. His face was white, eyes too wide. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But I'd seen White. Hat was in that cave. I'd seen the bones. "We need help," I said. "We need guns, more rangers." Something roared. Not an animal sound, not bear, not mountain lion. Something that hurt my ears, made my teeth ache. It came from where Mitchell had disappeared, and it sounded like rage. We ran again. The trail twisted through the hollow, following the creek. My legs felt like rubber. I kept waiting for that hand to grab my ankle, to feel myself jerked off my feet. Behind us, trees were falling. I could hear them crashing down, one after another. Whatever it was pushing through the forest, knocking aside 100-year-old oaks like they were weeds. We rounded a bend and stopped. The trail ahead was blocked. A pile of stones stretched across the path, stacked 6 feet high. They hadn't been there an hour ago, and carved into the dirt in front of them, scratched deep. "Stay." "Go around," I panted. We climbed up the hillside, skirting the stone pile. My hands found purchase on rocks and roots. Almost to the top, almost clear. That's when I saw it. Standing on the ridge above us. 10 feet tall if it was an inch. Covered in dark, matted hair. Arms that hung past its knees. And a face. God, that face. almost human but wrong. Too long, jaw too big, eyes that glowed yellow even in daylight. It was holding something. Mitchell's flashlight. It smiled. I saw teeth filed to points. Then it threw the flashlight at us. The throw was impossible. The flashlight came like a bullet, hit the rocks beside my head, and shattered into pieces. If it had been 2 inches to the left, it would have caved in my skull. Kowalski was scrambling back down the slope. I followed, half falling, rocks cutting my palms. We hit the trail running. My mind was screaming at me that this wasn't real, couldn't be real. Giants didn't exist. But I'd seen it, clear as day. The creek beside the trail was running, fast. We splashed through it, icy water soaking our boots. Maybe water would hide our scent. Maybe it would lose our trail. Behind us, that roar came again. Closer this time. We rounded. Another bend, and there, finally, was the trail split. 2 miles to the parking lot, 2 miles to the car, to help, to weapons. "Don't stop," I gasped at Kowalski. We ran flat out. My chest felt like it was on fire. 55 years old was too old for this. But fear kept my legs moving. 1 mile. Half a mile. I could see the trailhead through the trees, the parking lot. Our truck. We burst out of the forest into the clearing. And stopped. The family's car was gone. Our truck was gone. The parking lot was empty except for one vehicle. A rusted pickup with flat tires that looked like it had been there for decades. "No," Kowalski said. "No, no, no." Behind us, branches snapped. Something was coming down the trail. Moving slow now. Taking its time. I looked around frantically. The ranger station was a mile down the road, but the road looked wrong, overgrown, like nobody had driven on it in years. The trail sign was weathered, barely readable. "The station," I said. "Run for the station." We sprinted down the road. Weeds growing through cracks in the pavement caught at our feet. The forest pressed in on both sides, darker than it should be. I heard it behind us. Footsteps on the pavement. Slow, heavy steps. It wasn't running. It didn't need to. Ahead, the ranger station came into view. The lights were off. The windows were dark. We hit the door, locked. I pounded on it. "Hello? Anyone?" Kowalski was trying the windows. All locked, all dark. The footsteps stopped. I turned around slowly. It was standing in the middle of the road, 30 feet away, 10 feet tall, arms reaching nearly to the ground, that almost human face watching us. In the daylight, I could see it clearly, see the scars on its body, the mud caked in its hair, the way its chest rose and fell with each breath, and I could see what it was holding in one hand, Mitchell's jacket, still dripping blood. "Ease," I whispered to Kowalski. "Back away slowly." The thing tilted its head, watching us. Then it opened its mouth and spoke in Mitchell's voice. "Help us! Daddy, help us!" Perfect mimicry. The same words we'd heard in the hollow. Mitchell must have heard the family say it before. "Keys," Kowalski hissed. "Station keys. You have them?" I did. I always carried a spare set. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely get them out of my pocket. The thing took a step forward, then another. I got the key in the lock, turned it. The door opened. We fell inside, and I slammed it shut, through the deadbolt. Kowalski was already moving, checking the back door, the windows. Through the front window, I watched it approach. It stopped at the door, looked at the handle, then at me through the glass. It smiled again, and knocked. 3 polite knocks like a neighbor stopping by, then it walked away, disappearing into the forest. We stayed in that ranger station for an hour, not speaking. Kowalski was shaking. I couldn't think straight. My mind kept showing me Mitchell's face right before he was dragged away, the pile of bones in the cave, those yellow eyes in the darkness. Finally, I got up and checked the office. The calendar on the wall said October 1976, the right year, the right month. But something still felt wrong. "The phone," Kowalski said. He was pointing at the desk. I picked it up. Dial tone. Thank God. I called the main ranger station. It rang 4 times. Then someone picked up. Ranger Harrington? The voice was familiar. That you? It was Daniels, the station chief. Yeah, it's me. Listen, we need backup at Cataract Falls. Right now. We've got... Bill, where the hell have you been? Daniels sounded angry. You were supposed to check in 2 hours ago. I've got search teams looking for you. 2 hours? We'd been gone since morning. It was... I checked my watch. This year. In the afternoon. That couldn't be right. We'd been in the hollow for hours. What day is it? I asked. Silence on the line. Then, Bill, are you okay? It's Tuesday, October 19th, same. Day we'd gone in. Same day. We found a cave, I said. My voice sounded hollow. Full of bones, human bones. And there's something in the hollow, something... Slow down, Daniel said. What about the family? Did you find them? No, but Mitchell. Mitchell's dead. It killed him. Dragged him into the brush and... Mitchell's here, Daniel said. He's standing right next to me. Says you and Kowalski went off trail about 2 hours ago, and he lost radio contact. I looked at Kowalski. He looked back at me with the same expression, like the ground had dropped away beneath us. That's not possible, I said. Bill, I'm sending a team to your location. Just stay put. Don't go back into those woods until... I hung up. Outside the window, the forest looked normal. Afternoon sun slanting through the leaves, birds singing. The parking lot had our truck in it again, right where we'd left it. We're still in there, Kowalski whispered. We never left. This isn't real. He was right. I knew he was right. But knowing it and accepting it were different things. The door handle rattled. We both jumped, stared at the door. 3 knocks. Polite, patient. Rangers? You in there? A woman's voice. We need help. Our kids are missing. I looked through the peephole. The family from Ohio. Mom, Dad, 3 kids. Standing on the porch looking worried, but fine. Alive. Don't open it, Kowalski said. The mom knocked again. Please, we heard screaming in the woods. We think someone's hurt. Her face looked wrong. The smile was too wide. And her eyes, they didn't move right, like someone wearing a mask. We're not in the woods anymore, I said. We're in its territory. It's playing with us. Then how do we get out? I thought about the cave, the bones, the thing's size and strength. We couldn't fight it, but maybe we didn't have to. Cherokee fire driving, I said. Old hunting technique. My grandfather's. Her taught me. You light fires in a circle, drive the animal into the center, trap it. We don't have... Kowalski stopped. The station locker. Right. Emergency supplies, flares, fire starter, flare gun. The family outside was still knocking. Please, our little girl. She's only 6. The little girl. I looked through the peephole again. The daughter was standing behind her mom. She waved at me and smiled. Her teeth were filed to points. Get the supplies, I said. We're going back in. We loaded up. Flares, road flares, waterproof matches, lighter fluid from the maintenance shed. Kowalski found an axe. I took the flare gun. This is crazy, he said. Yeah. We went out the back door. The family was still knocking on the front. We slipped into the trees and headed back toward Screaming Hollow. The forest was wrong in ways I couldn't describe. Trees in slightly different positions, trail markers that didn't match my memory. But we pushed on. The hollow mouth opened before us. That same watching feeling. We followed the creek, moving fast. I kept expecting that hand to grab us, that roar to sound. But the forest was quiet. We found the cave as the sun started setting. The entrance yawned dark, that rot smell pouring out. I could see the bone pile inside, pale in the twilight. You sure about this? Kowalski asked. No. I wasn't sure about anything. But Mitchell was dead, and a family was missing. And this thing had been hunting people in these mountains for God knows how long. I started setting flares in a circle around the cave entrance, 200 feet out every 30 feet. Kowalski helped. We worked fast, quiet. The sun was almost down. When the circle was complete, I loaded the flare gun. "When I light these, it's going to come out," I said. "Be ready to run." I fired the flare gun into the woods on the far side of the cave. The flare arced through the air and landed, dead in dry leaves. Fire caught immediately. Then I started lighting the road flares, one after another, moving around the circle. They hissed to life, burning bright red. From inside the cave came a sound, low and angry. Something was waking up. I lit the last flare. The thing burst from the cave. Even expecting it, the size shocked me. 10 feet of muscle and rage, moving faster than something that big should move. It saw the fire circle and screamed, that teeth-aching roar. It tried to charge through the flames, stopped, backed away, tried another spot. The fire was too much. Wherever it turned, flames blocked its path. It spun toward us. "Run!" I shouted. We ran back toward the trail. Behind us, the thing howled. I heard it crashing through the brush, trying to find a gap in the fire circle. We hit the main trail, kept running. The roaring followed us, but it was getting fainter. We'd trapped it, at least for now. The parking lot appeared ahead. Our truck was there, real, solid, the right year and make. The sun was setting, casting normal shadows. We climbed in. I started the engine. It caught on the first try. As we pulled away, I looked back at Screaming Hollow. Smoke was rising from the trees, and standing at the edge of the forest, watching us leave, was a figure. Too tall, too still. It raised one long arm and waved. They found me passed out in the truck 2 miles from the trailhead. Concussion, hypothermia, severe dehydration. I'd driven off the road and hit a tree. Kowalski was in the passenger seat, unconscious. Mitchell was in the back, hurt bad, but alive. That's what they told me. That's what the reports say. The 3 of us had gone into Screaming Hollow that morning, found evidence of the missing family. Then something happened. Rock slide, maybe, or we got turned around, hit our heads, started hallucinating. The family from Ohio? They turned up 2 days later in a hotel 3 towns over. Said they'd changed their minds about hiking, gone to see a movie instead. Never went near Cataract Falls. Kowalski doesn't remember any of it. Neither did Oz Mitchell. They ask me what happened, and I see in their eyes they really don't know. Clean slate, like it never occurred. But I remember. Every detail. The cave, the bones, the thing that waved goodbye. I requested a transfer. They gave it to me, no questions asked. I work the visitor center now. Desk job. I tell tourists where to hike, show them maps, warn them about bear safety, and I never, ever send anyone towards Screaming Hollow. Park Service closed that whole area a month after the incident. Said there was geological instability, risk of landslides, put up signs, blocked the trail. But I hear things. Rangers who patrol near there report equipment malfunctions, compasses spinning, radios picking up screaming. Hikers who go off trail and come back hours later with no memory of where they've been. And people still go missing in the Smokies. Not often. Maybe 1 or 2 a year. Usually solo hikers, sometimes families. Last month, a ranger found something during a routine patrol near the closed section. A boot print, barefoot, size 18. Fresh. I'm telling you this because you need to know. If you're planning to hike the Smokies, stay on marked trails. Don't go into areas that are closed. Don't follow voices calling for help in the woods. And if you see Screaming Hollow on a map, cross it off your list. Some places aren't meant for people. Some things are older than we are, and they were here first. We're just visitors in their territory. I learned that lesson in October of 1976. I'm still alive to tell it. Mitchell and Kowalski weren't so lucky. They don't remember, which means part of them is still there. Still in the hollow, still in the cave with the bones. Sometimes I think part of me is too. And on quiet nights, when the wind comes from the east, I swear I can hear it. That roar, that sound of something ancient and hungry, calling from the mountains. Calling me back, but I'm not going, not ever again. You shouldn't either.